Hello Pokemon trainers, welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet video here on iStarly TV. This is another in my Battle Stadium Singles Spotlight series where I showcase different Pokemon and talk about their viability and different sets that you can use in Battle Stadium Singles in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Today we're talking about Garganacl, which is probably the premier defensive Pokemon of this generation. There are a lot of other good ones, but Garganacl is just one of the best when it comes to being a tank for your team. It can fit onto almost any team comp. It actually has a lot of versatility, even though you look at its stats and you feel like it probably just serves one or two different roles. But yeah, there's a lot it can actually do. This Pokemon reminds me a lot of Ferrothorn from previous generations, which is just a Pokemon that has a great typing, an amazing ability, excellent defensive stats, and it just kind of can do, again, so many different things on a team. So let's start by looking at Garganacl's strengths and just what it has going for it, and really just what makes it just, I would say, one of the best Pokemon in this metagame. Garganacl, if you look right here, its stats across the board are amazing, particularly for a Pokemon that wants to tank hits. This is a completely solid brick wall of a Pokemon. It's got 100 HP, 130 defense, which is massive, and even 90 special defense. Usually when you have bulky Pokemon like this that are like walls, usually they excel at just one of the defenses and the other one is kind of low. But Garganacl, again, kind of like Ferrothorn before it, actually can do well with both of its defensive stats. So you can have a purely physical wall, which takes physical hits extremely well, or even a special focused wall that takes special hits really well, or you could mix up the two, which we'll talk about in one of my example sets. On top of that, Garganacl actually has a base 100 attack stat, which is actually solid. That's not bad at all. For a defensive Pokemon, that is actually a really good attack stat. So as you'll see later, I'm going to try to suggest other possible sets with it where you can actually try to be a little more offensive and catch your opponents off guard. From there, Garganacl does have 45 special attack, which is just perfectly fine. It does not need that special attack stat. Sometimes Pokemon will have like a massive or a really good offensive stat, and then their other offensive stat is like weirdly like middling, like maybe base 70 or something like that. And you kind of wish like, oh, this Pokemon's really good at physical attacks. I wish they would have just taken some of the points from its special attack and just put it somewhere else where it can use it more, right? That's not the case with Garganacl. Garganacl's stat distribution is actually pretty well done, I would say. It also has a base 35 speed, which also is just not something that's going to matter. That's extremely slow, which you can actually sometimes use to your benefit, but also, given that Garganacl's purpose is to absorb hits from the opponent, you don't really need to worry about its speed stat. You don't have to worry about it outspeeding anything. On top of that, Garganacl is a pure rock type, which is fine. That's actually a solid defensive typing. You know, there's some Pokemon that have existed in the past who are like rock and steel or rock and ground, and the secondary typing usually adds some benefits, but it also typically adds more weaknesses, which is obviously not something you want when you have a defensive Pokemon. So just pure rock type is actually I would say something of a blessing here, because it's not 4 times weak to grass or water or fighting, though it is 2 times weak to those, so that's important to keep in mind. Finally, Garganacl has 3 really solid abilities, although its unique ability, its signature ability in this Purifying Salt, is probably the one you're always gonna want to go with. Sturdy is a solid ability, but for a Pokemon as tanky as Garganacl, you're probably gonna live a hit from almost anything anyway, so you probably are scarcely gonna worry about like surviving at 1 HP. You know, Sturdy is a good ability on Pokemon that don't have great defenses because you're kind of guaranteed to always live a hit. Garganacl, you're almost always guaranteed to live a hit against just about anything that's like unboosted. So Sturdy kind of feels like a waste, especially when you see how good Purifying Salt is. Then there's Clear Body, which, similar to Sturdy, is kind of like an ability that helps like offensive Pokemon. And again, Garganacl's not really an offensive Pokemon, and it's rare that people try to lower your defenses or special defenses in Battle Stadium Singles, so you don't really need to worry about that. So anyways, Purifying Salt, what it does is First of all, it makes you immune to status moves, which means you cannot be burned, you cannot be poisoned, you cannot be put to sleep. All of that is fantastic. You cannot be frozen. Literally any of the status conditions there are, you are immune to them as Garganacl. In addition to that, if that wasn't good enough already for a tanky Pokemon that wants to survive, it also takes half damage from ghost type moves. So you kind of have a resistance to ghost type even though you're a rock type. So just any ability that adds either an immunity or effectively a resistance is always going to be a good ability. So I mean, you know, it's almost like what doesn't this Pokemon do, right? You know, again, it's more defensively inclined, but it just has the perfect kit, I guess you could say, of defensive like abilities and stats that like, yeah, this is just such an amazing Pokemon. As for moves, we'll get to a little bit more depth on what Garganacl can do in a little bit, but I do want to talk about a couple important moves for Garganacl that you probably will see on most every set. And the first is its signature move, which is actually going to be down here, and that is Salt Cure. Did I miss it? Where is it? Salt Cure right here, sorry. It's 40 base power, which is really weak. However, that's not important. So the first hit is 40 base power, and then every turn after that, it's going to do residual damage to the opponent. So if you do Salt Cure against a Pokemon, it will lose 1/8 of its max HP every turn after that, which is pretty good. However, if you use it on a steel or water type Pokemon, they will lose 1/4 of their HP. That's a lot. That is really good, and especially in a meta where Pokemon like Goldango and Dondozo are two of the most used Pokemon and the most commonly seen Pokemon, and even something like Corviknight, being able to get a lot of residual damage on them every turn is going to either straight up kill them eventually, or it's going to force them to switch out when they typically don't want to. So this is just another really solid move. It doesn't look like much on the surface, but once you use it for the first time against a steel or water type, you'll probably fall in love. Additionally, Garganacl is kind of a rare case of a defensive Pokemon that actually has access to a recovery move. You know, there are some Pokemon in the meta, such as, for example, Dondozo, who don't have reliable recovery. They kind of have to rely on the move Rest to get their HP back. But Garganacl just straight up has Recover, so you're going to take hits really well, and then if the opponent switches out, or if you know you're going to survive a hit from them, you just go for Recover. And then finally, I'm going to go into more detail on this when I go over one of the sets, but Garganacl has, again, with this really, really high defensive stat, it also has access to the move Iron Defense, which raises your defense by 2. You might be wondering, okay, well, if my defense is already super high, why should I waste my time boosting it further? And that's because the move Body Press takes advantage of your defense stat. When you use Body Press, it factors in your defense rather than your attack stat. And since Garganacl's defense is so much higher than its attack stat, you're going to want this to be as high as possible. So if you go for Iron Defense 3 times, your defense will be maxed out. You'll have a massive, just absolutely astronomical defense stat, and your Body Presses will be destroying everything except for ghost types. So yeah, I mean, those are generally the main things you should know about Garganacl before jumping right in. With that being said, let's jump right in. The first Garganacl set I want to talk about right here is what I would refer to as the standard Garganacl set in Battle Stadium singles. So if you want to be running Garganacl, I think this is where you should be going. This is the direction you should be going with it. Like, if you came to this video with the goal being, I want to know how to use Garganacl, I want to know what set I should use, it's this one right here. Although, again, I always like to encourage experimentation. I always like to encourage you to try different things with different Pokemon. So there's a lot of ways you can use Garganacl that I might not go over here. But like I said, this is probably like the premier Garganacl set. And it is max HP and max special defense with a careful nature. Again, because Garganacl's defense is so good, it's fine to just invest in the special defense just so that you're able to take hits from both sides of the spectrum really well. And then the moveset is Recover, Iron Defense, Body Press, and Salt Cure. I've already gone over all 4 of these moves already in detail, so you kind of know what they do at this point. But obviously the goal with this set is to send in Garganacl against something that just can't really touch it. And because you're a Pokemon with such amazing defenses, there's a lot of those Pokemon out there that can't really touch you. And then you just start setting up iron defenses, which either forces them to switch out or forces them to kind of take desperate measures if they can't really touch you after that. And then you set up iron defense, you go for recover once you're a little bit lower on health, and then eventually you start going for body press, and sometimes you're capable of just sweeping through the opponent's team. Obviously, with a set like this, you're gonna want to be mindful of ghost types on the opponent's team because, of course, ghost is immune to fighting. So if you go for body press against a ghost type, it won't do anything. That's why I like to have Salt Cure as the fourth move. Really, the fourth move, I mean, there's a few options you can have. You really just, for that fourth move, you just want something that can hit ghost types. So whatever that happens to be, I think Salt Cure is just a great enough move that's probably where you want to go. But that's why I would advise against going like Recover, Iron Defense, Body Press, and like Protect, or even Stealth Rock for the fourth move, because if they have a ghost type, then you just can't touch them. So that's why Salt Cure is there. I guess if you really want to not run Salt Cure and run something else instead, you can make sure your team is capable of dealing with ghost types, and when you're in a battle, make sure you knock out your opponent's ghost types before sending in Garganacl. That could possibly work, but I think this is just the best way to use Garganacl. Another important thing to talk about here is Terra type. Garganacl is a Pokemon that can really take advantage of terastallizing in a battle. I like to run Terra Ghost on Garganacl for a few reasons. Obviously, by default, you are weak to fighting, and so by Terra Ghosting or terastallizing into a ghost type, you're now immune to fighting. Also, as a ghost type, normally, obviously, you would be weak to ghost type moves, but of course, Garganacl's ability basically counteracts that and makes it, instead of you being weak to ghost type moves, I think basically once all the calculations are said and done, you end up taking neutral damage virtually from ghost type moves. So it basically removes your ghost type weakness because of your ability. So that's really strong as well. So Terra Ghost is a great place to be, but I also like Terra Poison, or I've seen Terra Poison, which is another way to kind of resist fighting type moves, so that's a good option as well. It also makes you pretty good against Breloom because typically Breelooms will run like Spore, Mach Punch, and Bullet Punch, and you're immune to Spore, you resist Mach Punch and Bullet Punch. Of course, if their last move is Bulldoze, that could be a problem, but you're already so tanky, and if you've already gotten up an Iron Defense at that point, it kind of doesn't matter. The last Terra type that I think is really good for Garganacl is going to be Terra Flying. And Terra Flying makes you almost perfectly immune to Breloom if they are running the standard set of Spore, Mach Punch, Bullet Punch, and Bulldoze, because you resist or are immune to all of those moves. But I think most importantly, you run Terra Flying because of Dondozo. Dondozo runs Fissure typically, which is a super inaccurate move, but if it does connect, it will automatically one-hit KO you, which will obviously ignore all of your Iron Defense boosts. So if you're worried about Dondozo, which I think you should be because it's a very common Pokemon these days, I think Terra Flying is another great option for Garganacl, because if you run Terra Flying, if you've set up a couple Iron Defenses, Garganacl I keep getting their names mixed up. If you set up enough Iron Defenses and you are Terra Flying, Dondozo basically won't be able to touch you, and you can just kind of destroy it with impunity. Go for Salt Cure, of course, first, and then use Body Press to just kind of get off additional damage against it. So this is where you want to be with Garganacl. Flying, Poison, or Ghost are going to be the three Terra types you want most. Again, if your team doesn't really have too many solid plans for Dondozo, then I would recommend Terra Flying. But if you have one or two Pokemon that are already capable of dealing with Dondozo pretty handily, then Terra Ghost is a great option. Of course, I said max HP and max special defense, but you can also, of course, just run max HP and max defense. That'll make your body presses hit a lot harder. So as always, as I keep saying here, if the rest of your team is capable of dealing with powerful special attackers, it could be fine to just go max HP and max defense here and not invest in the special defense. This just makes Garganacl more well-rounded, but if you just go this route, you are less well-rounded, but you're just extremely good at taking hits from physical attackers. And basically, if that's the case, there's almost no physical attacker who can take you on 1v1 unless they've already set up a few times. The last thing I want to talk about is, there's a lot to talk about here, but I think it's because a lot of these Garganacl sets are kind of like, a lot of these rules will apply. I'll give you kind of the move set, and then from there, the EVs and the item and the Terra type are always interchangeable even regardless of which moveset you're running. But as far as items are concerned, Leftovers is probably the best for Garganacl. You're a tanky Pokemon. You're going to be on the battlefield for a long time. You're going to be trying to stall out the opponent. You're gonna want that residual recovery every turn. However, if you already have leftovers on another Pokemon, there are these berries like the Iapapa berry, Figgy berry, etc., which will boost or recover a small amount of HP once you hit a certain threshold. Also, Citrus berry is a great option as well. Yeah, so I would recommend Citrus berry, Figgy berry, or Iapapa berry, or leftovers. All right, here we have the next set. Actually, this is not exactly the next set. This is just a different EV spread for Garganacl. You could run this on the previous set or really any of these sets. But the Calc here, I got this from the Smogon resources. The Calc here is, with this much defense investment, you will not be one-hit KO'd by Breloom's Mach Punch. So you're always immune to Spore. And then if you have this investment here, I believe that's also after an Iron Defense. If you set up an Iron Defense, they go into Breloom, hoping to destroy you with Mach Punch. You're going to ruin their day with this set. So again, this is specifically for Breloom. I'm going to put a link to the damage calculator in the description. So if you want to kind of plug in some numbers and go up, plug in some other Pokemon and just see what EVs will allow you to survive certain hits for other Pokemon, that can also be worth it. Like if your team struggles with Garchomp or Tinkaton or whatever the case might be, you can kind of plug in those numbers and see what will survive certain hits from those Pokemon. But this is one, because Breloom's common enough that this is worth pointing out. This next set here is, and I actually don't know what happened. For some reason, this one's level 100 when it should be 50. I'll go ahead and change that. It's not a huge deal, but sometimes the Calcs and the EVs and stuff are a little bit different at level 50 than at level 100. But anyways, this is just a purely defensive Garganacl, a stally Garganacl. So this Garganacl, where this first Garganacl is focused on tanking hits, but also setting up to deal a lot of damage, this Garganacl here is just really focused on tanking hits. Sure, you can close out a game with Salt Cure if your opponent's last Pokemon is a Steel or Water type, but I mean, the goal with this set is just to stall them out. Personally, I don't love this playstyle myself, but some people do, right? And if you want to ruin people's days, you can run this set. And as you notice here with the moves, it's just pretty much purely stall oriented. So maybe if you have a Glimmora on your team to set up Toxic Spikes to continuously whittle the opponent's HP down, you could also run like Hippowdon on your team to set up Sandstorm to again continuously whittle their HP down while also boosting Garganacl's special defense because it's a rock type. Yeah, there's a lot of options for that, but the goal here, max HP, max defense, and you're really annoying. If you switch in against something that's not going to do much to you at all, you can set up a substitute on the switch, and then from there you can protect, Salt Cure, recover when you need to, and just go kind of alternate all these moves until the opponent either rage quits or dies. It is a very annoying set, but because Garganacl is just so good at taking hits, this can absolutely make people rage. And the last specific set that I have here, which is kind of a weird one, but I think it's worth trying out. This is Choice Banded Garganacl. I actually ran into an offensive Garganacl on the Pokemon Showdown ladder, and it almost destroyed me. Luckily, I kind of was able to outmaneuver them, and I was able to beat them, but this is a really weird set, I think, but it's capable of destroying Pokemon that would otherwise wall or counter you, and really just throwing the opponent off guard. Like I said, this set is pretty much the standard. Usually when you see a Garganacl on the opponent's team, you can expect it to have most or all of these moves and kind of do most or all of this same game plan. So if your opponent goes into a Pokemon that they think is gonna, ignore that or get through you or something, you can kind of just surprise them by hitting them for a lot of damage out of nowhere. And as I've said, 100 base attack is not a little bit. That's a solid amount for a tanky Pokemon like this. And you've got your strong moves. Unfortunately, your best coverage option as a rock type is going to be Stone Edge, which of course is very inaccurate. But if you can connect it, it can do a lot of damage to things out of nowhere. Thunder Punch is there mainly for Dondozo, and it can also hit other flying types. It also hits Corviknight really well, so Thunder Punch is a great option. If you really want to, this is going to sound weird, but you could also run Salt Cure, even though you're a Choice Banded set. I mean, again, Salt Cure is great at hitting Dondozo and Corviknight, which Thunder Punch is also kind of meant to do. So if you want to just run Salt Cure in that place, you can. if you want to kind of get a little like tricky and get that residual damage on them. There's also Ironhead, which is great for the fairy types that are running around. One other common Pokemon that's really good right now is Skeledirge, and typically they go Terra Fairy. And if that's the case, as a rock type, you're going to take almost no damage from their Torch Songs. With Purifying Salt, you're going to take almost no damage from their Ghost type moves. You also are immune to Will-O-Wisp and Yawn for that matter, so you can just completely destroy Skeledirge with this set. If they go into Skeledirge, you can switch in your Garganacl and basically either force them out or kill them either with Stone Edge if they have yet to Terrastalize, or Ironhead if they already Terrastalized. Then we have Earthquake, which just rounds out the coverage really well. These moves also let you hit Annihilate decently hard. You can also take on Annihilate 1v1 decently well with this set, although if they start setting up bulk ups, that can definitely be a problem. And so one move that I learned that also is a pretty good option is Zen Headbutt. So in the place of one of these two moves, you can run Zen Headbutt, which gives you an edge against Annihilate and Breloom. They'll send in Annihilate or Breloom against you, expecting to like be able to set up in your face or get off a lot of damage against you, and then out of nowhere you just hit them with the super effective Zen Headbutt and almost kill them in one hit. So I think that's a pretty good place to be as well. As far as partners for this set, I think something like Hippowdon are really good. Again, Hippowdon's Sandstorm is really good for you because it boosts your special defense. As far as Terra types, I mean, there's a few options. Terra Flying is always good, just defensively. You can go Terra Rock to make your Stone Edges more powerful. It's going to sound weird, but you can go Terra Psychic to boost your Zen Headbutts, or Terra Steel for Ironhead. There's a lot of options again, or just any of the Terra types that I mentioned previously, like Ghost or Poison as well. There's a lot of options here, but I think this set looks really fun, and it's exciting to try it out. And one more set I want to talk about that I almost forgot about that's a lot of fun here is this set here. It's very, very similar to the the Iron Defense Body Press build. But the difference is that we're running Curse, which lowers your speed, which you absolutely do not care about as Garganacl, and then boosts your attack and defense. So if you want, you don't have to run Body Press for this one. You could run like a more damaging move like Hammer Arm, because again, Body Press ignores your attack and goes off of your defense, whereas Hammer Arm will go off of your attack. But even still, since you're also boosting your defense, it's still fine to run Body Press. However, the little gimmick with this set is if you use Curse before Terrastalizing, you get the +1 attack, +1 defense, and -1 speed, so you can kind of use that as many times as you need. And then when you're ready to Terrastalize, you Terra Ghost, and that changes Curse to having the effect that it has on Ghost type Pokemon, if that makes any sense. Which means when you're a Ghost type, when you use Curse, it'll cut your HP in half and put a Curse on the opponent, which will drain them for, I believe, 1/4 of their health every turn, which is pretty good as well. So that can kind of throw people off as well. You kind of set up a few curses and then recover off the damage. And then when they're not expecting it, you Terra Ghost, go for Curse, cut your HP, and then start draining them. So if they only have like one Pokemon left and you have like 2 Pokemon left, or you have just Garganacl left and you're at a good amount of health or something, you know, that's a way that you can kind of close out the game without them expecting it. So Curse is a good way of getting through other Pokemon's defense boosts and shredding other defensive Pokemon like Dondozo or Skeledirge. And I think this is a really fun gimmicky set that I've tried, and it's actually been pretty good. Keep in mind though that once you Terra Ghost, Curse will never boost your defense or attack again. So there have been times where I Terra Ghost because I need to for defensive purposes, and then I want to boost my defense, but I can't anymore because Curse will now cut my HP. So keep that in mind. This one's a little harder to play, but I think the potential is there and it is a lot of fun. Finally, I want to talk about other options for Garganacl for this last bit here. Another move that Garganacl has access to that I haven't really talked too much about is going to be Stealth Rock. Stealth Rock is really good. Another thing I forgot to mention about the Choice Band set is you are immune to Taunt. So a lot of people, when they see Garganacl, they'll taunt you. They'll use the move Taunt to stop you from going for, again, Iron Defense or Recover or whatever the case might be. And if they taunt you and then you just hit them really hard out of nowhere, that's really good for you. One final thing that is not really a good thing for Garganacl is actually, because of Garganacl's ability, it's actually immune to Rest, which means it cannot use the move Rest. So make sure you do not run Rest on your Garganacls. All right, we're at the point in the video now where we're going to go ahead and showcase one of these Garganacl sets in a battle. I have a few videos on my channel where I used Garganacl on my teams, and that was using kind of the more traditional Garganacl set. So I'll post those links to those videos at the end of this one if you want to check those out. This one is going to be showcasing the Choice Banded Garganacl set. So we're going to see how this goes. Let's see if this does as much damage or surprises people as much as I want it to. I have Hippowdon for support. Getting up Stealth Rocks is good for Garganacl to finish some damage. And I have, the usual Yawn, Whirlwind, Earthquake with Sandstream. I am Terra Flying for defensive purposes. Then I'm running Skeleturge, Tried and True Skeleturge. I'm going to have to do another video on Skeleturge at some point because this is another amazing Pokemon. This time I'm running Mixed Dragapult. Actually, I realize I don't have an item. Let me put Life Orb on that. And I'm running Mixed Dragapult here, which is really interesting. We're going to try it out. I like this set a lot. Then we have Scarf Garchomp, pretty traditional as well. And then finally, Bulky Rotom with 4 attacks and Terra Fairy. Let's get to a battle. All right, let's take a look here. My opponent's team is pretty good. And it's funny because my opponent's team looks actually decently weak. Choice Banded Garganacl. So I'm going to lead Hippo just to get off the sand, get up some Stealth Rocks. Hippo's pretty good against all these Pokemon as well. And getting up rocks and or sand can break multi-skill. And then I feel like Gengar typically runs Focus Sash as well, so breaking that will be nice. From there, I'm definitely worried about Azu because both of these Pokemon are weak to water. So, and then maybe Annihilate as well, just in case. So who do I like against those Pokemon? Maybe Rotom? Maybe Chomp? Honestly, I'm not in a great spot against Azu. It might just be, this is going to sound really weird, but it might just be Skeleturge here. Just if I Terra Fairy, I'm going to be pretty good against Azumarill. So they lead Gengar, which I'm fine with, because I get up the sand, and like I said, if they're Focus Sash, then I get to break the Sash. I'm just going to go for Rocks here. I think it's just that good. They actually Trick here, which is pretty bad for me. And now, this is going to sound really weird, but I'm just going to go for Stealth Rock just to scout what they do. This will give me the information on like whether they're going to attack me or like switch out. And they actually do go for the Shadow Ball. At this point, I just go into Garganacl here. I can take any hit from them really, really well because the sand is up and also because I have Purifying Salt. So this should take, yeah, I take that extremely well. They do get the special defense drop, which is annoying, but I think I'm free to just fire off a Stone Edge here. They don't have a switch into this. I guess they have Annihilate. Actually, I'm going to go Zen Headbutt here. They do go Annihilate, and as you can see right there, I take off 75% of their health. So that's pretty funny. I bet they were not expecting that at all. Do I Terra here? I'm not going to... yeah, I'm going to Terra because they're going to probably Drain Punch. Oh, I missed the Zen Headbutt. That's awkward. My fear is if they have Hydreigon, that's really bad. But if they don't, nothing can really switch into my Zen Headbutt. So that's pretty awesome, actually. I'm actually really loving this set already. So we're going to see they're thinking on what they're going to do here. They go Drain Punch again, and I knock them out with the Zen Headbutt. Perfect. This is one reason why I like Choice Banded Garganacl, because again, the Pokemon who would typically like outspeed you or just kind of threaten you, you can kind of just destroy them without them knowing what to do. I switch into Hippowdon on the Thunderbolt, which is great for me. I can Earthquake, but they have a couple Pokemon that are immune to that. I think I'm just going to Yawn here. If they kill me, that's perfectly fine as well, because now I go back into Garganacl. And now they know about Zen Headbutt. So now actually what I do is go Stone Edge because they actually have nothing that resists it. That Thunderbolt does a lot, but I am able to kill them. And I mean, here we are. If their last one's Azumarill, I'm losing this, which is pretty funny. Oh my god, that's so funny. All right, well, that's okay. I think we played well enough. I did expect the Azumarill, and the fact that I Terastallized Flying made me weak to the Thunderbolt, so that's kind of funny how that ended up turning out. Anyways, that's fine though. Let's see, I can try to outpredict them. I don't think I live like a Liquidation though. I'm gonna Will-O-Wisp just to see if by some miracle I survive. I'm faster, so that means I'm gonna get off a Slack Off before they attack me. And now they're burned, although their moves are doing a ton of damage to me. Eventually I'm gonna run out of Slack Offs. Yeah, they're doing so much damage to me. I don't think I'm winning this game. That's fine though. Yeah. But anyways, that was a really close battle, and it did showcase the power of Choice Banded Garganacl, so I like that. Let's actually do one more here. Okay, this team is also interesting. This team does look pretty weak to Stealth Rock as well, so I'm going to lead Hippo again. Honestly though, about my opponent's team, they have so many fighting types that I don't like Garganacl, but also I can just Terra Flying, so let's just do that. And then I think Skeledirge looks nice here as well, although I need to keep in mind if I'm terastallizing Garganacl, I cannot terrastallize Skeledirge, so that could be a problem. Or maybe just Choice Banded Chomp, or Choice Scarf Chomp. Or maybe even just Rotom. I think it's just going to be Dirge. We'll see how this plays out. They lead Gallade. I'm going to go ahead and Rocks now. I'm max HP, max defense, so I should take any hit from them. They might have like Liquidation though. They go close combat and that does nothing. This is going to allow me to go for Yawn on the predicted switch. Maybe I just go Earthquake here though, but they have a lot of flying types, so I think it's just best to go Yawn. Wow, Poison Jab does nothing. And I'm just going to Yawn again in case they switch. This is what Hippowdon does, by the way. I should actually start using this Pokemon more. It's really good. You just Yawn them, and then if they switch, they get yawned, or if they stay in, you know, they fall asleep. So now I'm going to Earthquake. If they stay in, they're dead. If they switch out, they have a sleeping Gallade in the back. All right, now they go into Salamence, and I think I'm just going to Whirlwind here. If they set up Dragon Dance, okay, they go Draco. That's good. Well, it's not good, but now I think I go Garganacl and just go Stone Edge. They have no switch-ins to Stone Edge. Choice Banded Stone Edge. If they stay in, they're dead. If I hit Double Edge. What? Do you know I'm a Rock type? I think I'm in a really good spot now, though, because Terra Fairy Skeledirge is good against, like, all of these Pokemon. And, I mean, there's a chance that Garganacl just kills them anyway. So, they go Tyranitar. I'm going to go Stone Edge here. It's fine if they set up Dragon Dances, because my Skeledirge has Unaware. Alright, I think this game is over. But, I mean, that actually showcased the power of Choice Banded Garganacl. So, yeah, I mean, this shows, they go for Giga Impact. Their team was kind of interesting, let's just say. So this just goes to show there are so many different ways to use Garganacl. There's the traditional Iron Defense Body Press build. There's some stall-oriented builds. And then, of course, you could even use it offensively to decent success. So I really like this set. Maybe I'll have to feature this in a video, in an actual like Battle Stadium singles video, but I hope this video helped you out. I hope you learned a lot about Garganacl. If you did, go ahead and please subscribe to my channel. I'm actually super close to 31,000 subscribers. I've been at 30,000 subscribers for a long time, and so I'm almost finally at that next number. I'd appreciate that so much. Please also leave a comment letting me know what you thought of this video. What do you think of Garganacl? Also, what Pokemon would you like to see me feature in this series? I'm having a lot of fun with it, and it's really fun to see weird sets like this kind of work out. So thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you next time.